Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of biology. And of course today we are going to be looking at fertilization in flowering plants. Also, we'll touch on germination and types, okay, of germination. All right, so please ensure you stay to the end of the class. If you like, don't stay. And also do not forget that these tutorials, these video lessons, all the episodes that are brought to you by the O3 Schools application. All right, so if you're preparing for your JAMB or your WAEC, okay, these videos and these applications, they are tailored towards that. Okay, so it's not only for JAMB. The reason why we prioritize JAMB because JAMB is the highest exam you will take. All right, so after WAEC, JAMB is JAMB. All right, so JAMB is like the climax, and our videos are very comprehensive, totally comprehensive. So you can use them for WAEC, for JAMB, for NECO, any O-level examination. We'll talk about the app in a moment, but let us see a past question from the JAMB app. This is a 2022 question, number 30. It says here that dash is the tiny hole through which air and water goes into the embryo of the seed. A says a seed coat, B says the micropyle, C says the helium, D says the seed shell rather. All right, so we'll come back to this question and many more at the end of the class, because at O3 Schools we pride ourselves in giving you value first. Let us teach you properly, and once you have been properly taught, answering question will be the very least of your problems. All right, so please ensure you download the application from Play Store, from App Store also, and the app is also available for your computer systems. All right, so if you need the link to download for your computer system, message this number on WhatsApp. Okay, and the app has everything you need, all the past questions for all the subjects and the application. That's one. Also, there are wonderful features like the classroom feature, where you can study the lecture notes that have been structured according to the JAMB syllabus. So you don't need to go and be carrying any textbook up and down. The app has everything. And also in that same classroom, there's a study plan. You can create a study plan. The study plan will crash all the subjects you want to study, all right, with their syllabus, and create a timetable for you so that you can easily finish the syllabus. Many of you do the mistake of preparing for your exam, JAMB, WAEC, NECO, GC, or anyone, without studying with the syllabus or finishing it. That's where the bulk of a problem will begin from. So please ensure you use the app to your advantage. Also, there's also a question search feature. So you can search for questions from the application. Just go to question search, click on the subject, like for example, biology, then click search for fertilization. Question on fertilization will come out. Okay, and also likewise, there's also another wonderful feature called the mock challenge. All right, so the mock challenge is a challenge that will conduct for all students that have taken the exam for this year. You come to the app, compete with your mates, win a lot of prizes. But the major reason why we conduct that challenge is not because of the prizes. It's for you to get it to JAMB past questions, likely exam questions, right? As well as place yourself. Okay, put yourself in the place of the examiner. See how the examiner is reasoning. See how he possibly set question for you, or where he will set question for you from. All right, and so many perks. And you'll be seeing your result released after every challenge. Okay, so just like normal JAMB, your result will come out. You will see, you'll be able to track how prepared you are per time. Be able to track how prepared you are. Is that not wonderful? So please jump on the application and start immediately. All right. So there's an activation fee for the app. All right. So the activation fee is less than the price of rice and chicken in a good restaurant. It's less than the price of rice and chicken in a good restaurant. So please ensure you get the activation and start preparing your way to success. Now let us see fertilization. All right. So we talked about pollination in the previous class, and we said that pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. All right, and of course that means that for the pollen grains, first of all need to find a compatible stigma. Compatible or stigma to land on. All right, so the pollen grains, that is from the anther. Okay, you know, this is how your anther looks like. It's a bilobe. Okay, then you now have something like this slender filament. This one is the filament. Okay, this one is the anther. Okay, and on this anther, you have what we call pollen sacs. These pollen sacs, that one that contain pollen grains. Contain pollen grains. Okay, so that's basically it. So pollination, we said, is the transfer, okay, of these pollen grains, okay, from the anther, okay, to the to the stigma. So this means that that the pollen that is being transferred need to find a compatible stigma to land on. So immediately after pollination, that is what happens. The pollen needs to go and what? Land on what? On the stigma. Once it lands on the stigma, then that's where what? We now start talking about what? The fertilization what process. That's why we're talking about fertilization in flowering plants today. Now, once pollination takes place, okay, the pollen will land on the stigma, okay? So see this is how the stigma is, all right? Something like this, okay? So this is where the pollen what will land, to land what? On the stigma, okay? So this is the stigma, and then here now is the pollen on it. Okay, so when it lands on the stigma, it will form what we call what? A pollen tube, all right? It will form a pollen tube. It will now grow downward, okay? It will grow downward, okay? Carrying what? The male gametes, Okay, we say male gametes because there are two male gametes, okay? So it will go down, carrying what? The male gametes, and then what? It will now reach what? The ovary. It will now get to the what? To the ovary. Now there's a tiny opening, okay, in the ovule of flowering plants, okay? The ovule is inside the ovary, right? So definitely the pollen tube it has gotten to the ovary, okay? So now there's a tiny opening in the ovule of flowering plants through which the pollen tubes enters during fertilization, okay? There's a tiny opening, very tiny opening. Okay, let me just show you how it looks like. Okay, let's say this is something like our, then you now have what your, okay, then you now have what your polar nuclei, something like this. Okay, so it's somewhere here. Then I have your egg cells. Okay, so now this how it looks like. Okay, so there's like a tiny opening. Okay, there's a tiny opening, very tiny opening. Okay, through which what the pollen tubes enters into the what? Into the ovule during what? Fertilization. That this tiny opening here, this opening here is what we call the micropyle. Okay, the micropyle plays a very important role. Okay, the pollen tube enters what? Into the ovule through the micropyle. Also, the micropyle also allows the passage of water and gases. Okay, it also allows the passage of water and gases, and also helps to identify the point of fertilization. Okay, so the micropyle is very important. All right, allows the pollen tube to enter into the ovule. Okay, allows water and gases to enter into the seed. All right, and then basically also helps to what? Identify the point, okay, of what? Of fertilization. Okay, so now our pollen tube has gotten to the ovary. Now, in the ovary, we have something we call an embryo sac. Embryo sac. Okay, so this one here is our what? Is our what? It's our embryo sac. Embryo sac. Okay, that's our embryo sac there. Okay, and inside the embryo sac, okay, we find the what? The egg cell. Okay, so look at our egg cell here. Egg cell. Okay, inside the embryo sac we find what? The egg cell. And then we also have something we call the polar nucleus. Okay, let me take care of all this. Okay, let me even redraw that thing so that it becomes more clearer. All right, so we say that what? Inside the ovary we have something we call the embryo sac. Okay, so something like this. This is our ovary. Okay, then we now have what? Smaller one here. This one is called the embryo sac. Okay, and inside the embryo sac, okay, we have what? The egg cell. Okay, the egg cell, and then also have something we call the polar nuclei. Okay, polar nuclei. Okay, this one is also called what? It's also called central nuclei. It's also called polar nucleus. Also called secondary nucleus. Okay, so you can call it secondary nuclei. You can call it polar nuclei. You can call it what? What's it called? Central what? Nuclei. All right. So this is what basically what happened. All right. So now inside the ovary, we have said that what? The pollen will land on what? On the stigma, and then what? It will form a pollen tube. The pollen tube will take the two male gametes. Okay, and then it will what? Go down the style and what? Enter into the what? Into the what? Ovary to get to the ovary. Okay, inside the ovary we have what to call this embryo sac. Okay, and inside the embryo sac we have what? The egg cell. Then we also have something we call what? The polar nuclei, or what? The secondary nuclei. There are two of them also. So in the what? In the pollen, there are two male gametes. Okay. Then also in the what? We also have what? Two polar nuclei or central what? Nuclei. Okay. Or central nuclei, or you can say what? Secondary nucleus. Okay. So we have what? Two male gametes in the pollen. All right. So now, what will now happen at this point? At this point, one of the male gametes in the pollen, okay, which has gone what through what which has landed on the stigma, okay, and now gone through the style, okay, to the ovary, one will now fuse with the egg cell. Okay. So let's see that. So one male gamete will fuse, okay, will fuse with what? With the egg cell. With the egg cell, okay, and then this will form what? A zygote. Okay, so now that is what the first male gamete. But remember, we said there are two male gametes. So the first one will fuse with what? With the egg cell to form what? Zygote. This is the process we call what? As fertilization. Okay, so fertilization is the fusion, okay, of the male and the female gametes, okay, to what now? To give us what to call what? Zygote. That is what fertilization. I'll go over that again. I say fertilization is the fusion of the male and the female gametes, okay, to give us what to call what? The zygote, to form the zygote. Okay, so this is what we call fertilization. And this also occurs in what? In human also, but in plant we still have one more male gamete. Okay, so since there are two male gametes in the pollen, one has fused with the egg cell to what? To form the zygote. The other one, male gamete now will fuse with the polar nuclei. Remember that what? Two polar nuclei. Okay, it will fuse with the polar nuclei. So the other what? Male gamete, one other male gamete, okay, will fuse with what? With the polar nuclei. And once it fuses, it gives something known as what? As the primary, okay, endosperm nucleus. Okay, so once what the other male gamete fuses with the polar nuclei, it gives us something known as what? As the primary endosperm what? Nucleus. Okay, which is what shortened to as what? PEN, pen. So the second male gamete will fuse with the polar nucleus to give us primary endosperm nucleus, which eventually will now form what we call endosperm. All right. So from the pen, it will now form what? Endosperm. And if you notice, the union of fertilization has happened how many times? It happened what? Twice. Okay? It happens what? Twice. And because it happened twice, we refer to this as what? As double fertilization. Okay, so because the union, the fusion, all right, has happened twice, we refer to this as what? As double fertilization. You must take note of what? Of that. So what happens next? The zygote will develop into an embryo. Okay, so what happens next is that the zygote will develop into what now? The embryo. Already said that the primary endosperm nucleus will now develop into the what? Into the what? The endosperm what? Tissue. Okay, take note of that. Okay, so the zygote will develop to form the embryo, while the primary endosperm nucleus will develop to form what? The endosperm, or you'd say what? Endosperm tissue. Now, after fertilization, all the other parts of the flower, like the stamen, okay, like the petal, okay, like the stigma, like the star, all other parts, okay, of what? Of the flower will wither off. It will wither off. That means it will fall off. Okay, it will wither off, leaving us only two things: the ovary. It will leave us the ovary, then it will now leave us what? The ovule. Those are the two things that will be left. All other parts will what? Will wither off, leaving us only the ovary and the ovule, or we cannot call it ovule again now because fertilization has taken place. We call it what? Fertilized ovule. Fertilized ovule. Okay, so that's what basically what happened. And then the ovary will ripen. It will ripen, R-I-P-E-N, to form the fruit. Okay, the ovary will ripen to form the fruit, while the ovule will now develop into what? Seed. to form what? The seed. Okay, so that is basically what all the process. All right, so let me go over it one more time for clarity or purpose. So initially, the what is it called? Before I go over that, please ensure we have noticed that most of you do not support all our effort. Okay, you do not support. You do not like our videos. You do not subscribe to our channel. You do not share our link to your friends and loved ones. Some of you are even someone that in your family you cannot support, you cannot share, cannot like, and that is very, very, very bad. Okay, so please, liking the video will help other students who do not know about this channel at all. Okay, so please ensure you like the video, like the video, like the video. Even as you are watching now, click on the like button. All right, click on the subscribe button if you have not subscribed to the channel. All right, click on that red subscribe button, and then what? Click on the share button. Copy the link of this video, share to your friends, your loved ones, to your class group. Let them all come and learn. All right, so now basically let me go over that again. I say the pollen will what? We find a compatible stigma, okay, and then it will land on the stigma. So the pollen, all right, we find what? A compatible stigma, okay. It will land on what? On the stigma. All right, once it lands on the stigma, all right, it will go down, carrying what? The male gametes. You know the pollen has how many male gametes? It's carrying 2 male gametes. The pollen is carrying what? 2 male gametes. Okay, so it lands on the stigma, all right. Then it will now what? Go what? It will grow downwards, okay, to form what to call what? The pollen tube, and then eventually it will now get what? Into the what? Into the ovary. All right, through tiny opening, all right, called what? The what now? The micropyle. All right, and I also told you that the micropyle has some other uses, also allows the passage of water and gases into what? Into the seed, and also tries to help us to identify the point of fertilization, because even most times after the what's it called? After the fruit or the fruit has developed, okay, you see the micropyle does not leave, it's always there. Okay, you see what? That small what? Opening, okay, so it's always there. All right, so now the pollen, the stigma, the pollen tube, it gets to the ovary, and then in the ovary we have something we call what? The embryo sac, okay, and then inside the embryo sac we have something we call what? The egg cell. And then also I told you that we have something we also call the what? Polar nuclei. There are 2 of them, polar what? Nuclei. All right, then fission now begins. Okay, so one of the male gametes, this polar nuclei, I told you that how many? There are 2. Okay, so the fission begins. One male gamete will what? Will fuse, okay, with what? With the egg cell, which is what? The female gamete. Okay, so one male gamete will fuse to the what? With the female gamete, okay, which is what? The egg cell, and then to form the what? The zygote. Okay, and then many other one male gamete. So the other one other male gamete will fuse also with what now? With the polar nuclei. With the polar nuclei. Okay, and then this one will give us what? The pen. Primary endosperm what? Nucleus. Okay, the zygote will develop to give what? The embryo, and then what? The pen will develop, okay, to give what? The what now? The endosperm tissue. Endosperm what? Tissue. All right, so after fertilization, all of what? The other parts in the flower, like the sepal, the petal, the stamen, all of them, they will wither off, okay, leaving only the ovule and ovary, okay. So the ovary will now what? Develop, okay, and what? It will ripen, R-I-P-E-N, it will ripen to now form, what is it called now? The what? The fruit, okay, while the ovule will develop into the seeds, okay. So these are what we have talked about so far. So you should be able to understand this whole process. Very easy, okay, very, very easy. Please note that a dicotyledonous embryo, okay, you know what a dicotyledonous plant is, isn't it? That has 2 seed leaves. We talked about all of those in the previous episode. All right, so a dicotyledonous embryo, all right, will develop dicotyledonous embryo, okay, will develop into what we call what? A plumule. Please take note of this, okay? A dicot embryo will develop into what we call what? A plumule. A plumule is also called embryonic shoot. All right, and also a radicle. A radicle is also called embryonic root. All right. So a dicotyledonous embryo will develop into a plumule called the embryonic shoot. Okay, and a radicle called what? The what? Embryonic what? Root, having what? Two seed leaves, having two seed leaves or cotyledons. Okay, please take note of these. All right, this is for a dicot. Okay, so it's developed into a plumule, embryonic shoot, or a radicle, embryonic root, having two seed leaves or cotyledon. Likewise, the plumule and the radicle will form an axis. Plumule, that is this plumule, and the radicle, they will form what we call an axis. Okay, the cotyledon arise on the axis at the junction of the what? Radicle and the plumule. The cotyledon, they arise at the junction of what? Of the radicle and what? And the plumule. The part of the axis, the part of the axis above the cotyledon, the part of the axis above the cotyledon, okay, is what we call the epicotyl. Okay, please take note of that. The part of the axis, okay, above the cotyledon is called epicotyl, while the part of the axis below, okay, so below the cotyledon now, okay, above is called epicotyl, below is called hypocotyl. Please take note of these two terms, okay? So the part of the axis above the cotyledon is called epicotyl, while the part of the axis below the cotyledon is known as hypocotyl. Therefore, a monocotyledonous embryo consists of what? Of a plumule and a radicle, but having only one seed leaf. Please take note, all right? A dicotyledonous embryo consists of what? A plumule and a radicle having two seed leaves, while a monocotyledonous embryo, okay, we say it has what? The plumule and the what? And the radicle, but with only what? One seed leaf, The plumule, okay, is usually protected by a sheath, that we call the coleoptile. Okay, coleoptile. Okay, the plumule is usually protected by a sheath known as the coleoptile, while the radicle is protected also by a sheath, this time known as what? Coleorhiza. Okay, alright, this is the sheath that protects the radicle, while this coleoptile is the sheath that protects what? The plumule. Okay, basically the embryo, the endosperm, helps to what? Act as what? As food storage. Okay, helps to what? To store food. That's the function of what? Of the endosperm. Okay, helps to what? In the storage of what? Of food. Okay, and with all of this, we can now go to what? To germination. Okay, germination. All right, so please ensure you like this video. If you do not understand any part of this, please ask in the comment section. Ask question in the comment section. All right, and also we are not I'm not a man that knows everything. Okay, so if, let's say for example, you discovered that there's a mistake somewhere, also we take corrections. Okay, we take corrections, and most times whenever we are corrected in case of any issue, which happens very, very, very rarely. Okay, if it happens, we usually put the correction in the comments. Okay, we'll go to the description of the video, you see the correction there. Okay, that's why sometimes you are supposed to also read the description. Okay, because corrections will be made there. We cannot say we want to go and make one full video because the correction will be one very small thing. Because of that, now I made the full video. It's not easy to make video. That's why you're supposed to support us. Like the video, share, copy the link, subscribe, download the app, use it, succeed, pass at once, be proud of yourself, and let your family be proud of you. Okay, no dey pour speed, no go pour speed for my eye. Okay, read, study to show yourself approved. So now let us go to germination. All right, so what is germination? Okay, so germination refers to a series of changes, okay, that occur or which occurs, okay, when the embryo in a seed grows and develops into a seedling. Okay, so that is what germination. Series of changes that what occur, all right, when the embryo in the seed grows and develop into what is seedling. All of those series of what processes and changes is what known as what and as germination. And of course, you should note that what that there are some conditions that are necessary for germination to occur. Okay, all right, okay, there are some conditions necessary for germination to occur. That is why most times you do not plant things during the dry season, or do you? No, you plant during what the rainy season when you have a sufficient water. And water is one of the most important. It's the most important what condition that's necessary for what? For germination. So let us see some of those conditions. One, we have what? Water, which is ultimate, baba of them all. They also need what to call suitable temperature. Okay, they also need what? Sufficient or adequate what? Oxygen supply. Okay, so all of these what conditions are what necessary for what? For germination. Please take note of that. But water is the most important. Okay, among all of them, water is the most important. Okay, so let's look at types of germination. We have two main types of germination. Okay, which is one, the epigel germination, and then number two, the hypogel germination. They're very, very simple. One, we have epigel. Okay, sorry, epigel germination. Okay, then number two, we have the hypogel. Okay, these are the two types of what germination that we have. Not okay, it's EPIGEAL, epigel germination and hypogel germination. So now in epigel germination, okay, it is characterized. Let me say epigel germination. This one is characterized by rapid elongation, okay, of what? Of the hypocotyl. One, by rapid elongation of the hypocotyl. Okay, you know what the hypocotyl is. We defined it initially. Okay, so it's the part of the axis that is above the cotyledon. Part of the axis above the cotyledon. Okay, so this epigel germination is characterized by rapid elongation of the hypocotyl, and then also the cotyledons in epigel germination. The cotyledons are usually raised above the soil levels for epigel. Okay, so the cotyledons are usually raised above the soil level. Okay, so the epigel germination is characterized by rapid elongation of the hypocotyl, and then the cotyledons are usually raised above the soil level. The example of plants you can usually see this is what is castor oil. Castor oil. Then also have the other one, cowpea also. Okay. Okay, you see the word cotyledon raised, okay, above what? Above the what's it called now? Above the word the soil. That is what epigel germination. Why for hypogel? Hypogel, yes. This one is characterized by rapid elongation of the epicotyl. Okay, the part of the axis, okay, that is what now? Okay, this one is below hypocotyl, that is below, sorry. That is below the word, the cotyledon, okay? The part of the axis that is below the cotyledon is hypocotyl. Okay, the part of the cotyledon that is above what the cotyledon is what we call what the epicotyl. All right, so rapid elongation of the epicotyl, and then two, the cotyledon remains in the soil. The cotyledon remains in the soil. Okay, example of plant you can find this is yam. Okay, if you see plant yam, you see it goes down. Okay, while what the other plant is what is maize. All right, so these are examples, okay, of what? Of epigel and what? And hypogel what? Germination. So in epigel germination, the cotyledons are usually raised above the soil levels, okay, and it's characterized by the what? Rapid elongation of the hypocotyl, the part of the axis that is what? Below below the cotyledon, okay? And the cotyledons are usually what raised above the soil levels. While for hypogel, it's characterized by rapid elongation of the epicotyl, okay, which is what the cotyledon, which shows that what the cotyledon remains in the soil. Example is yam and maize. So now let us go to the O3 Schools app, answer some questions, and we're out of. In fact, the questions will not become too easy because we have learned almost everything about it. Okay, you have been properly taught. So answer question will not be your problem any longer. So let us see 2022 number 30. They say the tiny hole through which air and water goes into the embryo of the seed is called what? A says seed coat, B says micropyle, C says helium, D says seed shell. Please tell me the answer in the comment section. Just say 2022 is A or B or C or D. Okay? Or say number 1, A or B or C or D. 2. 2023 number 33 says germination is the process in which a seed, A says, develops into a mature plant. B says absorbs nutrient from the soil. C says begins to photosynthesize. D says breaks dormancy and starts to grow. Okay? Tell me the correct answer in the comment section. 2024 number 25 says the series of changes that occur in the seed by which the embryo develops into a seedling is known as A says fertilization, B says gametogenesis, C says pollination, D says germination. Tell me the answer in the comment section. 2005 number 28 says, use the diagram below to answer the question that follows. Okay, they say the type of germination illustrated is termed A says hypogel, B says epicotyl, C says epigel, D says hypocotyls. Okay, so tell me the correct answer in the comment section. Okay, you haven't learned the type of germination that we have. If you see that one, of course, you're supposed to know now that is so and so or so and so. All right. So that's where we are going to stop today. In the next class, we're going to look at fruits and seeds. Okay, we're expecting you to be there and ensure you download the O3 Schools app. Start preparing immediately. Okay, your success depends on it. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you for watching.